So for our Mastering in Vivo workshop tonight, we have the pleasure of having Maggy Hunter with us. She is an EDD student just like all of us, and she can't wait to impart some in vivo wisdom to us. But other than her in vivo expertise, Maggie is a learning designer and educational researcher specializing in community-based pedagogy, informal and digital learning, and culturally responsive teaching. Her work includes creating award-winning programs at the Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History, leading research initiatives with diverse communities, and securing competitive funding for educational innovation. A proud double Husky, she earned her Bachelor's of Science in Biology from Northeastern in 2006. In return for the EDD program, for after completing her Master's of Science in Learning Design and Technology from the University of Maryland Global Campus. Her dissertation research in our program focuses on critical pedagogy and community-led approaches to museum education. So, if that doesn't impress you, I don't know what does. So, without further ado, I can't wait to take it on over to Maggie to lead us in, exploring our in vivo expertise. And we'll, of course, have plenty of time and opportunities for questions. We encourage you to put your questions in the chat if you need any clarification on what Maggie is presenting to us tonight. So with that, Maggie, feel free to take it away.
Excellent. Thank you. That was a very generous introduction. So thank you very much. And I will try to live up to maybe like in vivo princess a little. I think I still have a lot of work to get to queen. But thank you all for being here tonight. I am going to briefly share my screen. Um, so as Taylor said, we're going to dive into in vivo, and I am going to qualify this a little bit to say that I love in vivo and I really enjoy using it. But I really stumbled through it a lot in all of my R courses and even my Cycle 1 courses. And so there may be some of you who are like more expert at this than I am even. So I'm going to run through, I have a nice big outline, but if there's anything, any tips or anything that you want to chime in on, please do. But to help me gauge where everybody is at, if you can use the chat and you can tell me 3 things that will help me on this giant outline I have on my desktop, which is how confident you are in using in vivo, low, medium, or high. If you're using a Mac or PC, they're slightly different, but I have used both. If tonight you brought a new or existing project, and optionally, you can give me a 1-word story on your in vivo experience, which can be good, bad, or ugly. So I'm going to give everybody just a second so I can look at this chat and see how we're doing here. Am I sharing my entire screen or just my PowerPoint?
Just PowerPoint for now.
Okay, perfect. All right, low PC. All right, current. Dartboard. Stumbling, yes. Okay, no experience, low, PC, both, existing, difficult. Okay, cautiously optimistic. Yes, I love to leave on that one. Okay, so this gives me a pretty good sense of where everybody's at. And so I just want to affirm all of you that I think everybody feels terrible when they open up in vivo. And we also all have something to code. We're like, I have an assignment to do. I need some codes now. And so tonight, my goal really is to help you get to a point where your confidence is a little higher, you have some more skills, and you leave with a project that you have some data in that you can continue building from, whether it's a brand new one or one that you've already brought. So I'm not going to give a comprehensive overview of what in vivo is right now, but I did just want to give one small slide on what it does, what it can do. And really, this is just a slide from a presentation I gave at residency this summer. And really, in vivo can do a lot, or you can use it on kind of the lower end and really just kind of get your coding and getting it all done. But it's an incredible tool for staying organized and managing all of your files, from journal articles, transcripts, analytic memos, field notes, all of it. Coding, of course, so many tools for analysis and meaning making, and also your theory building and testing, all of the queries, all of the visualizations. It really is a one-stop shop for all of this. I find it to be an incredibly helpful tool too for writing support and resources. When I'm writing a paper, I'm always in NVivo looking at my literature and being able to query everything to be able to build that up. It's good for all of those reflexive tools that we have to build into our work. And of course, it creates an audit trail to be able to have some confidence in your results and to be able to share them with others. So this is our flexible agenda. So like I said, what I really hope you leave this workshop with, and I may freeze a little bit. What I really hope you leave this workshop with are some skills and some confidence in a project that you feel good about leaving with. I hope to get to at least the point where we get into some of the queries, but if we're short on time, then I'll be able to go faster or slower, depending on where you're at. As Taylor said, if you have like technical questions as we're going through this, put them in the chat or slow me down, get my attention, and we'll be able to figure it out. I do have familiarity using the Mac and the PC version. So I'm going to show you the Mac version because it's the one that is not making my computer crash right now. So I'm going to show you the Mac and I'm going to tell you what's a little bit different. We don't need to save that. I'm going to tell you what's a little bit different in the Windows version. And the Windows version is actually a little bit more intuitive and it has more functionality than the Mac version. So if you're using the Windows version, you should feel pretty good. Mac too, but it should be pretty intuitive. So with that, I am going to move you all to my other screen and I'm going to start with you to start a brand new project. So I hope everybody came with NVivo ready. Open up NVivo. Now we are going to create a brand new project. So this is a screen that should open. These are your other files that you may have like already worked if you've already opened projects, but we're going to, for the sake of our demo tonight, create a brand new project. So click on Create Project. So this is where you're going to name your project and where you're going to store it. You will have slightly more options in the Windows version. In the Mac version, let me just show you. This is the Mac version. So you're going to give it a title. So Jacera Demo Real Time is what I'm going to call it. And I'm going to add the title as the same thing that I'm saving it as. You can add a description if you want. Make sure you auto save your project. So select that auto save button. You'll have more autosave options in the Windows option that you can select, and then select somewhere that you're going to save this project. So I'm going to put mine back into the NVivo recovery files. I'll actually make a file within a folder and I'll actually call it like NVivo recovery demo so that I know if it crashes or if I need to get back into my NVivo project file, I know where to find it. And then you're just going to create the project. So give it a little bit of time to think. And here you are, you're at your main screen. We're going to skip our tour and I'm going to go full screen for you. So this is the basic interface for all NVivo projects. It comes empty and there's some descriptive information on each one of the screens. What's really important in NVivo that I think I didn't learn until I was deeper into it is that organizing your files and adding a little bit of metadata at the very beginning goes a long way. So our first task right now is going to be importing some files. So you should have a couple de-identified transcripts or journal articles. So right now we're going to retrieve those. So you can either go to files and click on this empty space. And now here we'll go to import actually. So go across your top ribbon and click import right here. And then click files. You're going to select PDFs. I find PDFs are easier to use in NVivo. And then I had a couple PDFs that are saved into a demo folder that I'm going to import. For the sake of our tutorial, because some people may be using transcripts, I'm also going to import a couple transcripts. These are just transcripts from R3 when we grab some de-identified data off of Google. So I'm going to put in these interview transcripts too. Okay, so if you're not with me, do like an emoji or something in the chat, but I don't see anybody waving. So I'm going to keep going. The next step is we're going to go to files and right click on files and click new folder. There, make a folder for journal articles and then make another one if you're using them for interviews. You can add a description if you want, but they're pretty descriptive as it is, so you're fine probably. Then select those files. So I'm going to select my transcripts first and simply drag them into your folders. So now I'm going to take my journal articles and I'm going to drag them into journal articles. Now you can see here are my interviews, here are my journal articles. The next step is we're going to add a little bit of metadata for each of these. For the purposes of our demo, we're not going to be extensive about this, just a little bit here. But what you're going to do is go to File Classifications. Now on Windows, there's a button up top too that says Classifications if you don't see it here. There's also this one on the Mac. But you're going to right click on File Classifications, or actually, no, this is where you have to go to Create, sorry. So if you go on the top ribbon in Windows, you might have to click File Classification. And in Mac, you're going to go to the Create tab and then pick File Classification. And you have a new box that's going to show up. So for journal articles, for all file classifications, this is essentially just the metadata. This is, if you're doing interviews, this might be demographic information like race, ethnicity, grade, school, what teacher they have, whatever kind of identifying information you're approved to collect for your participant data, that's what might go in here. For journals, what you might be collecting are kind of the methodology, case study, qualitative, mixed methods. It might also, for journals, it might be the year, the author. There's all sorts of data that you can collect. So I'm going to do 2 different classifications to show you. So I'm going to, for this, I'm going to put journal metadata and I'm going to put done. Now over here on the right, you see that I now have a classification sheet, it's called. Attributes is empty, but if I click on classification sheet, it's also empty. So I need to add attributes within my journal metadata. So I'm just going to right click and hit new attribute. So for my journal metadata, I'm going to put year. In Windows, you're going to have a tab at the top that says, I think, general, and right next to it, it says value. If you click on value, you should have a box underneath that looks similar to this one. And if you hit a plus, you can add options. For year, don't worry about adding options if that's what you're doing. But if you added interview stuff like race, then you might want to put Caucasian, white, American Indian, whatever those that you're qualifying are in this space. I'll show you that one next. So I'm going to remove this. It won't let you have an empty one. And I'm going to hit done. I'm going to right click and I'm going to add another attribute. I'm going to write research type. And then I'm going to go down here. And for your annotated bibliography, if you remember back, we had to have X many empirical studies with only a few theoretical. So if you want to keep track of that, let's put empirical here. Let's put theoretical, perspective, and I have even a couple conference proceedings in my data. So I'm going to put all of those and then I'm going to hit done. And then let's do one more attribute. Let's put educational environment. So for my educational environment, I'm looking at museums, I'm looking at science museums, and then maybe I have some K-12 spillover. So I'm going to press OK. We're going to add one more file classification I'm going to show you for interviews before we actually classify our data. So this is ready to go, but if you go to file uh, file classifications and right click. Let's do one more new classification. So new classification. And for this, I'm going to put participant demographics. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to put grade. So let's say I have kinder and I have grade 1. We'll do teacher, AB teacher, and how about BC teacher? And we're going to do one more, which is going to be school. And we'll say school A. There's a typo there. That's okay. School B. Now, make sure that you follow along on some of this stuff because it is going to come in handy when we query our data and when we start mixing around variables and looking at multiple things. So at this point, you should have a file classification with attributes. Now what you do is you go back up to your data in your files. So I'm up here and I click on interviews and I highlight all of them and I right click and under classification, attach the select participant demographics. Now, when you go to the classification sheet, you should see all of your transcripts with those attributes. And now you can assign all of them. So if I knew that transcript 1 was student 1, if you click the magnifying glass, I know that, let's say you had your data handy, student 1 is in kindergarten, they have teacher AB, and they go to school B. And then transcript 2, I know is in grade 1. They have BC teacher and they go to school A. So you're going to go across and do this for all of your data. What I'm not showing you is there are ways to automate this with spreadsheets and things, but this is, again, we're kind of doing the basics. Now, if you go to journal articles, you do the same thing. You go back over here to your files, select journal articles, select them all, right click, classification, and you're going to hit journal metadata. Now, you want to open up your classification sheet. Look, you go here. This is my journal metadata. I'm going to go to my classification sheet. And then you're going to put in your data right here. So I'm going to give everybody, so this is unassigned. So you can just write in that like a regular text box. Some of my file names actually have years in it. So I'm going to just use the years that are in the file names here. And then I'm going to, this was proceedings. I'm going to assign what kind of research each one of these was. This is going to help later. And this was, I don't remember, but I'm just going to say theoretical. So I have a different, that one's not applicable. Yoso is so good. I love that article. It's like a major element of my DIP. Okay. So give me the equivalent of a yell or a shout or a stop now in the chat if you're not with me. Okay, I see thumbs up. Yay! Okay, so you just made it through classification. If you are, can you import only one file at a time or many? No, you can import many files at one time. You can put like a whole batch in a big folder and totally import them. If you're thinking about that though, and you use a reference manager, there's a really cool tool where you can actually export your EndNote library or your RefWorks library into NVivo. Give me a thumbs up if anybody wants to see kind of the second half of doing that. Whoa, what? I want that. Okay, many. Yes. Okay. So I can share a resource afterwards to show you a video on how to do it from your reference side of it. But I have So, okay, I just showed you this way. So if you went, I've already exported my EndNote library at a different time, right? So if you go to bibliography now and you select, I use EndNote, I'm going to select EndNote. And I am going to pick EndNote exports, and I'm going to select one of them is better than the other. Which is it? I'm going to pick belonging. Let's see what belonging looks like. So once you do that, then you're going to have the option to be able to sort it by author and year or title on a Mac. Again, I think there's a couple more options on Windows. I'm going to select author and year, and I'm going to make sure that they all come in as their own classification, each file. And the files are going to save to my files and my data. And the externals, this is pretty cool. If you have researcher notes in your EndNote, so if you're making notes and you're annotating and stuff, that will get dumped into their own files in the externals in NVivo, and it'll still be associated with that research file. And then you hit OK. Give it a second. This is one of the ways to kind of automate the import. The classifications, all of that metadata can also be done in a separate spreadsheet if you're not using that. So what you'll see, these were not previously here. So these were that entire folder, my belonging folder in EndNote. So now they're all right here. And what's pretty cool is this reference, it automatically created a classification sheet for all of this data. So I can open up my data sheet. Come on. File classification. Nope, sorry. So here is my classification sheet that just got imported from EndNote, and it's everything is there. So here's the title, right, of all of them. Here are the years, here are the authors. I mean, anything you put in EndNote can automatically be put in here. I have a lot of empty fields, I think, but I mean, it's really all the DOIs, it'll all come together. So this is a really handy trick. Taylor, yes, it is so wild. It's really special. So really good file management opportunities here. And what you can also do is, because this gets dumped into files, what you can do, so that came out of my EndNote folder for the theme of belonging. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another file here, and I'm going to put belonging, and I'm going to highlight all of these and drag them into belonging. So now I have kind of this belonging folder, I have interviews, and I have journal articles. And if you want, you can associate this with the other journal article metadata. You just right click classification and you say, I want to add this to my journal article data as well. So then when you go over to your journal article, you see all of a sudden, all of these are now here as well. And you can add the data there. So if you're tracking for your annotated bibliography or your lit review, you can make sure that you're not taking in your entire EndNote library. You're just like, okay, I just really need to figure out like these 4 pieces of data that I have them represented. Okay. Now that we have everything imported and organized, we're ready to code. So what you're going to do next is there's a ribbon on the left, and you want to hit codes. Or actually, before you do that, go to files, pick something, pick an interview, pick a journal article, and double click it so that it opens up, and then hit codes. So a little bit about the NVivo interface. If you selected autosave, it will continuously autosave. But it's going to populate these tabs. So kind of like your browser tab at the end of the day, if it has like 8,000 things in it, so will NVivo. I have stopped being precious about what I save here so that I have a clean slate. Before I was like hoarding. You can just keep closing it. It'll keep saving. You can save your queries, and I'll show you how to do that later. But I find that it's easier to work in clean spaces. So I opened up a journal article, and you'll see that I have no codes yet. So there's a couple different ways to code, and I find the easiest way is to highlight and right click. So one other thing that I just want to mention is if you go to your top tab, like home, you'll also see coding can happen up here too. So let's just start coding. So find a passage. I am going to highlight this part of the abstract, and I see a keyword here. So right click and select code selection, and then write to new code. And I'm going to put white supremacy culture. Done. Now it has populated to the left. So now I'm just going to highlight this, and you have the option to code a new code, or to your recent codes is going to show up below there. So if you're coding kind of and they start populating, it'll be in that same menu. Or what you can do is you can drag it into that same code. So if you highlight and drag over, that's an option. Some PDFs are finicky, so some PDFs work better than others. Or you can select two existing codes or cases, and it's going to pop up this window, and you'll be able to see all of your codes. So you can select them. So sometimes you might want to code something to like 4 things. You can open up this window, select them all, and then they're all going to populate. So, organizing NVivo codes. Yes. So let's all spend just a couple minutes coding. I want you to try to code just a little bit it doesn't need to be perfect. We're really working on the functionality of NVivo. Try at least 2 documents. Just code a couple things and try not to make like a ton of codes for the purposes of the queries that we're going to do in a minute. Try to stick to like just a couple, like 4, 5, 6. Oh, any tips for color coding? Okay, I'm going to show you one more thing before you keep going. So on your view, look around in a Windows window. I think it's on the left, not the right, but on the Mac, you're going to have a couple things up top here. Coding stripes, I like to look at all. What's going to happen is you're going to get all of your codes that show up on this right-hand bar. I also like to put on highlight, coding for all codes and cases. That's going to show you everything in your document that has coding. Now, if you're really organized from the outset and you can always revise this, you can start color coding. So if you go back to that first code you do, in a Mac, it's called Get Info. In a Windows option, I think it's called Code Properties. If you open it up, this is where you can edit your code. And this is also where you can color code it. So if you love color coding and you're really good at the highlighting, you can totally embrace this. And you could be like, this sounds pretty bad. I'm going to go red and I'm going to hit done. And so now you can see my coding stripe over here is red. So these can be modified at any time, but it is pretty good to like kind of keep track of. The other thing is it does have automatic color. So if you're not color coding, it'll color code for you so that it'll at least show up different colors while you're coding the same document. Okay, so spend a minute or 2 and try to code several different things. I'm going to do the same thing on my side so I can show you how to organize your codes a little bit. And if you have questions, I'll also tend to those in the chat.
And Maggie, it looks like we had a question from Edie about putting in codes in advance versus coding while doing it. And I know this can depend on the type of coding that you embark on. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Totally. So functionally, you can completely do that. And what you would do is you would just come over to your coding space, right click, and hit new top level code. So you can put in like, all right, I have theory. I know I'm going to think about theory, a new top level code. I'm also going to want to think about pedagogy, and I'm going to want to think about evaluation. So you can totally populate your whole code book on the left before you start coding. But as you said, Taylor, it's really going to depend on your research methodology. So if you're doing grounded theory, inductive reasoning, where you are coding, you're creating patterns, themes, and kind of theories based on the data you have, then you're going to want to code first and then come in and think about your code book. But if you are doing a different approach, if you're going a priori coding, where you're coming in with a theory that you already have in mind, that's when you start with the codes. I think we're heavily encouraged for really being inductive and letting the data speak to us and then making themes from there, which is why I'm kind of showing you from the data side of it, but both are totally possible. Okay, I'm just gonna make sure I code a couple things. This might be totally content-wise nonsense, but I just want to make sure that we have some things here for us to look at.
If there's any other questions, as all of you are kind of grappling with your own NVivo coding, feel free to drop any questions in the chat. I'm happy to let Maggie know. It looks like Jen has one. What were some things you wish you knew about coding in NVivo before doing it?
Metadata, 100% metadata. I have crazy spreadsheets tracking metadata and like pads of paper that are looking at like different populations in different people. And I wasn't doing it in NVivo previously, and that's really important. Do they help with data displays? Yeah. So once we get a little bit of data coded, and I might actually just exit this so that I can go into a different test one temporarily so I can actually show you that. I'll show you data displays. The other thing, there was one other thing I was just going to mention that I really wished I knew about NVivo. It'll come to me. Do they help with data displays? Yes, they definitely help with data displays. All right, this is just a different project that I had previously. This is also a little bit of nonsense, but it'll work for this. Remind us where you right click to find the new code to create it. So if you highlight any text and then right click, you should be able to code the selection, and you could either code it to an existing code, and that's going to pop up all of your codes in this window. So you can code it to multiple like this. If you get the arrow, that means there's another one. You could code it to this one, and you could code it to this one. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Or if you make sure you have this code selected, you can drag it over here. Perfect. The other thing that I haven't talked about that's really important with metadata, and you'll see it's a really big thing in NVivo, but we're not going to go there tonight, are cases. If you think about like a caseload, which is usually like a student, right, in their entire portfolio, you can create cases in NVivo for each one of your participants. So let's say you're using the same 12 participants in cycle 1 and cycle 2. You can create one case for participant 1 and keep all of their data in one case. And so you'll see this come up a lot when you're doing the queries and when you're and it'll say, do you want me to code this to a case, right? And so that's an option. We're just not going to go there because it's a little bit more technical tonight. Can you drag and drop highlighted text to the left where your list of codes populate? Yes. That's actually, once I have a really big code book, that's actually my preferred methodology, is dragging. And you can drag it into multiple locations. You can also, as you're going through, you may find that I'm going to put my coding stripes back on, and I'm going to put my highlight back on. You might find that you want to uncode things. So what you would do is you would just highlight it again and right click and uncode the selection. And sometimes you might find that the same passage is coded to multiple things. So down here, you can basically find out. You can click that And you can see that I have this coded to all of these things. And I'm like, oh, this is really just about museums. So I'm going to uncode it from enjoying school, teacher, support. And I'm going to select that. And now it's only coded to one thing. Now, organizing your codes is very easy and it's the same functionality in Mac and Windows. You basically nest things and drag and drop them. So if you're looking at your code book, I'm going to open this up over here. There's less metadata that shows up in the Windows file. I really think it only shows files and references. But this is what your code book's going to look like on the left. And as you like build out a project, this is super helpful for counting. So you can look at something and be like, oh, museums are not welcoming is in 4 files and I have 6 things different like coded to it. So this looks like it's becoming a little bit more significant. So that's just helpful as it is. But if you wanted to organize these, you just pick a code and you drag it into a parent code and it's going to populate right underneath. One of the things that I like to do is then you right click that top code and either press get info or code properties and make sure that it's aggregating coding from the child codes, which means that that top number, I'm going to unclick it for now. This top number, I only have one here and one here, but I have a couple pieces of data underneath. If I'm actually aggregating it from the child codes, then I'm going to get a better picture as I start moving from from like codes to patterns to themes over what is starting to really group together. If you're like, if you want to move this, but you're not sure where it goes, you can right click it and copy. And let's say you want to put it into teacher support, you can right click again and press paste. And now it is in 2 places. That could create confusion. So I recommend if you do that, delete it from one place, or because it's only going to continue. If you code it, you're going to have to code it to both places, right? So I recommend doing that as kind of an organization tool, not as a permanent fix. Okay. So does everybody have a couple things? We're like cruising through here. I do want to show you how to use some like search and analysis tools. We good to move on? Yes, great. Okay, so the first tool I'm going to show you is my favorite, and it's the most simple, and I hope you like it too. So up top, all of the analysis tools are in Explore, or most of them at least. And the one of the most basic and one of the most helpful is this text search up top. So select text search, and I brought in a belonging strand. So I am going to put in the word belonging here. And what this is going to do is it's going to query whatever I tell it to query belonging as a term. There is a drop down here that has like Boolean search terms. If you want to look at belonging, but not inclusion, or belonging, but not something else, whatever your study is. You can look for the exact match, or you can include stemmed words. So belong, belonged, belonging, all of those. If you're using Windows, you have a couple more options. I think it's like synonyms, even like words that are similar. So if you have like belonging, it might even put like comfort in there. It's kind of smart. It's kind of cool. So different options on the 2. Does it lag more? Oh, I'll mention that in a second, Jen. So I'm going to look at belonging, and I'm going to look at, you can basically search a couple different things. You can search all of these different things actually. And I'm going to look at my actual like data, like my journals for these terms. So I'm going to just select I'm just going to select that belonging thread that I brought in there. I'm going to select those. I'm going to see what my papers say about belonging, and I'm going to run the query. So this shows up that I have these different things that are finding belonging. Now, I know this top paper is an article about belonging, so I'm actually going to put not Applebaum, and I'm going to run the query again. Applebaum is the author of that paper. So I'm like, wait, that's going to bog me down. So now this is everything but the belonging paper. So there are a couple different options to look at this data. And this is the summary. So this is where this is showing up. This is how many times it's referenced in each one of those files I told it to look at, and that's the coverage. So I find this to be helpful as a snapshot. The next tool is reference. Oh, and on Windows, these tabs are on the right-hand side. Flip to the right-hand side of your window and you should see there's like 3 or 4 on Windows, but they should be the same thing. When you look at reference, it's going to open up every one of those references in each one of those papers. So this first paper, I can see kind of a little snippet of text. Now, if you click on that text and then right click, if you hit coding context, you can then select broad. This is sometimes called spreading, and it will open up that paragraph. So you can actually review that and determine if this works or not. And you can say, oh, this is pretty good. I think I want to code all of this to a new code. And this is spread coding. So I'm going to code this to a new, oops, I pressed the wrong thing. But you could basically code in here to the same thing different without ever leaving this page. So you can scroll through all of these references, or what you can do is you can click on the top and it'll bring you to the paper. It'll open up a brand new tab on the top and it will highlight in the text. This highlight is a little light, so it's hard to see, but it'll highlight everywhere in the paper where this word appears. So you can look through the actual text, the full text. Now, you can click off of that and you can go back to your query. The other option to look at it is a word tree. And the word tree is going to put the root word in the beginning with all of the words, with all of the references kind of off to the side. So, and if you hover over it, it'll tell you where the reference is. So this is in the Weath paper. And on Mac, I don't think Windows has this, is you can actually increase the number of words here. It won't let me do it because I'm clicked on there, probably. Usually you can scroll this over so the stems get longer so you can read more about the context. And then you can click on it and you can run another query and you can basically bring up that reference. So this is a really helpful tool when you're writing. So if you've already kind of thought about what you're doing and what you're going to write about, you have your theme, but you're like, oh, I really need a good definition of belonging, or I need a couple more references to make sure you can really look across this and see where your coverage is and where you want more. I'm going to X out of this. On Windows, it's going to repeatedly ping you if you leave a query without leaving it or saving it. So you can save these results or you can save the criteria. Saving the results is going to save exactly what is displayed here. So if I save the results, I'm going to say belonging, save results, and that's going to go down here into my queries tab on my left. But if I want, I can save my criteria. So I'm just going to say belonging query. And if I save the criteria, I can consistently run the same query as I add data and as I continue to code, and it'll constantly repopulate. Okay, Windows doesn't lag more. There's a question in the chat about not using Windows or Mac. I use a Mac machine and my Windows NVivo project bridges through Parallels. And so my Mac, it just gets really tired running Windows and NVivo and Zoom, which is why I'm not showing you NVivo on Windows tonight. I got really too confident in my NVivo skills and thought I was ready for the upgrade to Windows and all of the special coding features. And then I got there and I was like, oh, I need more work. So honestly, I've been perfectly happy with both versions. They both work really, really well. When you talk to NVivo help support, they love the Windows version because it does have a lot of extra analysis tools. But for the level that we're using it, I think Mac is fine. Oops, stop words. Oh, stop words. I'm really glad. What are project stop words? Okay, so I'm going to show you what a project stop word is in the next query that we're going to do. So that was text search, and the function works the same in both places. So go to the top and go to word frequency and click word frequency. And then I'm going to include stemmed words. So this is going to scan whatever you have to find common like words across whatever you want it to look at. So again, I want to look at just my journal articles. So I'm going to select my journal articles. Oh, I didn't select them. So I'm going to select my journal articles, and I don't want 1,000 words. So I want to display the top 100 words, and I'm going to include the stemmed words. And I want all of my words to be at least, I'm going to actually say 5 letters long. So every word is going to be at least 5 letters. I'm going to run my query. And these are my top words in those journal articles. This might not mean a lot, right? So we can look at our word cloud and we can start seeing like, okay, what kind of themes might be emerging. This is really helpful with codes. If you start coding like within your codes, you can kind of see in your transcripts what people are saying. But to find a stop word. So let's look at this. Okay, this is a good one. HTTPS. I do not need that in my word query. So I can right click HTTPS, add to stop words list, and now it's added. So same thing, I could probably do that to some other words here. I don't know how about terms? I don't know what terms is. Add to stop word list. So then you run the query again, and you'll get a new word cloud and it'll remove those words. So this is helpful sometimes if you've just done it for interview transcripts and you remove all the ands, uns, buts, likes, and you actually then can have a nice graphic. To get that nice graphic, you click gallery. You have a couple different like options to be able to display the same word cloud, and then you save your criteria. And oh, that'll save your criteria, but if you right click, you can save it as a PDF. Where is my save as a PDF? Oh, it's export, and it'll export as a PDF. Where do you find the cloud on a PC? It might be on that right-hand side again. After you run the query, it might say summary on one tab and word cloud right below it. Is that where it is? Okay. Okay, so I am so mindful that I am taking way longer than I thought I would. Do you want to stop and ask some questions, or do you want me to show you another couple of queries that utilize the attributes and metadata?
I think showing a little bit more is totally fine. And of course, for anyone who's on this call right now who, needs to step away, that's okay, because rest assured, again, this is being recorded and we will have it to our YouTube channel. So thank you, Maggie, for staying on.
All right. I'm glad people want to talk about nerdy things like NVivo. So thank you.
No better way to use, a Tuesday night, right, guys?
Okay, so I am going to, you can again save these. You can save the actual results, or you can save just a query, but I'm going to close mine so I can keep track of where things are at. I'm going to keep Olivera open. And next, we're going to go to queries, and we're going to go to coding. We'll do matrix coding next. So we're going to just go queries on your Explore tab, queries, coding. And so this is a good thing to look at codes and like co-occurrence of codes. So I want to look at all of my files, and I want to look at all of the codes. So then I'm going to select which code I want. So I'm going to click that, and it's going to open up my code book. Ooh, there's one other thing I want to tell you about. And I'm going to select what has codes in it? I'm going to select power relations and press the plus button over here. I'm also going to look at all of these codes. Again, you can kind of do any case where. any of these codes or all of these codes. I want to look at power relations, and I want to look at museums and democracy and white supremacy culture. Let's see how that looks. So 2, and I'm going to run a query. Okay, I didn't get any results, so I'm going to actually remove one of those. So again, this is kind of a mock. This is a mock project. So this shows what comes up. So I have one thing coded to both power relations in museums and democracy. And this is the hit. Now you can basically put in all different kinds of codes to be able to see what is going to come up. And so you can play around with this once you have adequate amount of data coded to be able to look at co-occurrence of things. I like sometimes to juxtapose ideas. So I want to look at when people are like really happy at school, but then like have, I don't know, they really don't like their teacher, right? Or something. So you can kind of start looking at ideas that are different, ideas that might be related. You can really just think about all the different ways that you want to see how your codes are related to each other. Okay, so this is pretty straightforward. So I'm going to show you something that leverages next the attributes that we made. So we are going to go to the one next to queries on a Mac is the matrix coding query. On Windows, it might be in that same query dropdown. You're going to click it, matrix coding query. And this is basically like running multiple coding queries, the thing that we just did simultaneously, but to be able to look at different areas of connection among different types of items. So I am going to show you what that looks like. I'm going to look at, I'm going to do codes. So again, you could look at files or you could look at codes. I'm going to look at codes. I'm going to look at critical. I think I coded most of this demo to power relations. So I'm going to try to see what that comes up there. And then I'm going to select some columns. Oh boy. I'm going to look at this. I'm going to look at museums not welcoming, museums and democracy, and decolonizing. And we're going to run that query. So let me add one more here, actually. So what you're going to see is this is going to give you a table of so you can select multiple things and it will show you, it'll show you what comes up and what is coded for that across the board. So what I selected on the left is codes. I wanted to see what was coded to power relations and decolonizing. And I wanted to know what also was coded to these 4 things, right? So I have one hit for museums and democracy and power relations. I have museums are not welcoming for all people, white supremacy culture. So you can look at different things. What you can also do here is you don't have to compare codes to codes. You can use those attribute values that we selected before. So I'm going to select the attribute values, and I'm going to go into our journal articles. And let me just look at, so this is a different project than one I made with you just a little bit ago. I'm going to look at the published date. I want to look at how these themes come up across different years. And so what you're going to see now is you're going to see that none of the papers, if it was a real project, you would see, you could basically look at how these themes are represented across different years. So if you were doing interviews, you could look at all the grades that you have, and you could look at 4 codes, and you can basically just see how those codes are shaking out over your population or over your papers and what that kind of representation is. There is one more coding type, one more query type, but I don't want to give it to you if you're like done and your brains are full. I can move on to visualizations. Okay, so there is a question. Is my recommendation to incorporate the literature as well as the interviews? We do code them as the same way to find alignment. At this point, I have actually separated my literature reviews and my cycle one data reviews into different NVivo projects because they had different like outcomes. But I think in the future, because I'm better at organizing it now, I'll probably for my DIP include literature and data so that I can look across. And so I now know how to like parse it out so that when I look for things, I'm looking for themes for the entire DIP. But I think for like R3, for your annotated bibliography, for your lit review, it's better to have one NVivo project for each one of those things so that you're really focused on just the outcomes and the like final themes and findings for that specific project, not the entire body. How would you organize NVivo codes? So NVivo codes, that's the one thing I wanted to get back to. What'll end up happening is after you go through all of your data, you may end up with like 500 codes and like thousands of things coded. And you're like, oh gosh, what did I do? So I recommend that you kind of make meaning as you go along. And I do that by sometimes I'll add a new code. If I'm like, all of these things really fit into solutions. So I need to throw a solutions code up there and I need to drag some things into solutions. And then I see that I have like, okay, I have major problems here. So I'm going to put some problems, I'm going to aggregate it, and then I'm going to put some things into problems. So whatever it is, however you make meaning to be able to collapse those ideas so that you can move from codes to patterns to themes to findings, I would recommend doing that. The thing that's really good about this coding structure is it's super dynamic. It'll keep updating. One of the things that I like would suggest doing, especially if you're, I forget what course it is, it might be R3 that you have to show your code book. You can export your code book from here. So if you click on one of your codes and you right click and you hit get info, you can put a brief description about what this means right here. And you can continue to update what that means. And then once your code book is ready, you can right click and you can just put export code book. And this whole thing will export with the codes and the descriptions. And that's pretty helpful. Sometimes the data sheet's really big, so you might want to delete it or clean it up a little bit, but it's a pretty good start. Creating umbrella codes, yes. Okay, we're 2 minutes over. I would love if you would humor me. And you gave me one word stories at the beginning. Can you give me one word stories now? And I will not be offended if it says that you're totally overwhelmed. I'm excited. Okay, I do see a question there. I'll get back up there. Oh my gosh, I see a confident. Yes. Inspired. Yes. Oh, that makes me so happy. Yes. Okay. Somebody said they want to experiment with it in R3. That's like my biggest piece of advice. You guys are over here, so I keep looking over at you here. My biggest piece of advice is to use it for R3 because you won't feel near and dear to that data because it's not your data. You won't feel like you're messing anything up. Just go and experiment with it. Use it for R3, mess up, keep going, fix it. And as much as you can, just keep playing around for R3. And so you'll just continue to gain that confidence. I really like doing my lit review in NVivo. It was really helpful for me to really kind of have a handle on what everything was saying and where it was. And then when you get to your DIP, of course, you'll have all your data and the lit review and everything else in one place. So, okay, there's a couple more questions. There's so many YouTube tutorials. I'd be happy to help anybody. You can email me. Oh, Felipe, you're very kind. I'm glad it was helpful. We do have free access to NVivo. It's through the IT resources. every year it expires around winter break, and they're really quick about uploading it, updating the key and everything. So if you find yourself in a pickle where you don't have access, email IT and they'll get back to you in like really quickly, and they'll probably give you the new one.
Yeah, I'm actually going to put that info. I was actually talking to IT today because we had this question come up. Sorry for that. This is going to come up as a paragraph in the chat here, everyone. But if you want to copy and paste this, this does go over how, when you first download the software, it's going to say that it's going to expire on the 26th of this coming December. But rest assured that as long as you followed Maggie's tips of, auto saving and saving it to your device, you will not lose that project. Really, what it comes down to is when the time comes, and rest assured this is going to happen during like the winter break in between quarters, so you won't lose anything as long as you save it. But basically, if you go back to the IT, platform for Northeastern, they'll have a new activation code. Code. We're talking so much about codes tonight. They'll have a new activation code to get the newer license of NVivo, and it will be for free, which is awesome. If it's free, it's for me. And it looks like Chris just shared the license code for the current NVivo in the chat. So thank you, Chris, for that. Any other questions for Maggie? This has been so awesome. And I definitely, as someone who's currently taking R3, by the way, and used it kind of as that time and place to to just remember that you're not going to break this thing, Yeah, like truly, like R3 is a great place to practice all of this and to try the software. And I know that Dr. Charles Kilfoy, who is a professor here at Northeastern in our program, he has actually co-hosted with Maggie at recent residencies about NVivo and the training. And he's creating a series of tutorial videos for students. And anyone who wants those videos can reach out to his email, and I'm happy to put it in the chat for us. And he'll also be asking you to provide some feedback because, again, like we want to make these resources just as robust for the next cohort of EDD students. So, the more feedback you can give him, the better off future, students will be. So I'll drop that in the chat. But keep the questions coming in the chat if you have anything.
Um, Jen did ask about data displays. I will say that the visualizations are there is a visualizations tab, and the most like used one I would say is probably like the hierarchy chart. So if you click on top where it says explore and click hierarchy chart, then you will get a like basically what do they call this? A tree map of all of your codes. You can also do the thing where you did in the other tool where you can create like stop words if you do it for other, like if you select different things so that you can have some level of control over what's shown here. And so this is coding for codes, right? Or you can do coding for files. So I can see which files I actually have the highest like coding for. And so this is one of your like main data displays that it gives you. I will say that the displays that I use from NVivo, I typically don't use in my actual reports because they're just not that compelling. I usually use the data displays to then create something else, unfortunately. They do have maps, and these maps have informed the maps that I have built in other, let me see if I have any maps pre-made. Ooh, I do. Okay, so there's a couple maps and they're really simple. So this is basically, this is like a mind mapping tool. So if you right click in visualizations and do new mind map, then you'll be able to basically get your ideas out about what this is. And it just operates like a lucid chart or a Miro, where you're basically nesting your own ideas. And then they also have concept maps. And this is a little bit more dynamic. And again, not quite, oh, it's not showing up. Not quite what you want to put in your final paper, but it is going to give you options to be able to put shapes, text, and you can kind of drag your codes down and be like, okay, I enjoy school, but I do have some teacher mistrust, right? But there is some teacher support. So you can start like associating these kinds of things like together. So this is like, they're more reflexive tools. rather than data display for final reports and things.
Any other questions for Maggie before we close out tonight? And feel free to either unmute at this time or put them in the chat.
So I had just a quick one, which is I wondered if anyone has used Delve and if that is better or worse than NVivo to code.
I've never used it before. I don't know about you, Maggie.
I haven't used it either. I
Okay.
haven't heard of it, actually.
Someone in the program told me about it, and it's very similar, but maybe not as exhaustive as this is.
The other one that I've heard a couple of people use is Quarkos. And that one has been explained to me as kind of like the more entry level NVivo. It does not have the same level of functionality, but they felt as if the learning curve was quicker for them to just get off the ground and start coding.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think back to when I was at the Boston residency this past summer, Maggie, because I know there was like an NVivo training and then there was the Quirkos training. And correct me if I'm wrong, the Quirkos we don't have for free as a Northeastern student. So that's the one thing to kind of be mindful of, whereas NVivo we do. So just kind of keep that all in mind as well.
And I think NVivo, if you're looking to like continue doing qualitative data analysis in your like future career, I think NVivo is really kind of the standard. We didn't talk about them, but there are collaboration tools where you can have multiple people in the same NVivo project and coding the same data. And you can compare, like if Chris coded and I coded the same interview, we could compare how we like did it. And there's all these kind of collaboration tools, which is kind of cool. I don't think we're there and we won't be there, but yeah, and some of the programs are expensive.
Amazing. Well, in case anyone has any like lingering questions as you make and break, test out NVivo, Maggie has generously offered to, share her email address with everyone. Again, she's an EDD student like you and I, so feel free to reach out to her if you have any questions. And again, Dr. Kilfoy, I put his email in our chat. He's another great resource as well if you want, especially any tutorial videos that he's going to be crafting. And as we know, YouTube is such a wonderful place for learning all the tips and tricks on, software like this that can be a little bit more complex. So, feel free to use those tools at your disposal as well, along with LinkedIn Learning that we also have free access to as students.